And welcome everyone, Friar Tuck here. So you guys know every Monday I do a collaboration with Homeless Entrepreneur. They are an international not-for-profit that helps the homeless and those that are in poverty, get out of their economic situation and better themselves economically. If you'd like to know more about them, go ahead and look at their website link down in the description. But the question that was posed this week was how will the U.S. elections affect the homeless community? And since before we get into today's video, I just want to remind you guys that I am supported through crowdfunding. All that stuff can be found down in the description. Enjoy the rest of the video. So how will the elections here in the United States between Kamala Harris and Donald J. Trump, who's going to benefit the homeless community better? And I'm apolitical. I don't subscribe to either party, so I'm not going to put in a party line bias like you might get from other people who are covering this subject. One of the things that I don't like about Donald Trump, and one of the things that concerns me that if he gets in power will actually end up happening, is that during his presidency, he wanted to take all the homeless and put them in camps outside of the city, not in the city, but outside of the city, kind of like an internment camp. Okay, he wanted to do that, and he was told he couldn't do it. He decided, well, I'm going to go ahead and do it anyway. Starts to write up the executive order. The DOJ intervenes and stops him from doing this. Otherwise, a couple of years ago, I would have been in an internment camp, and it could very well have turned into Auschwitz because, all you have to do is drum up enough hate from your base and then be the one in power to be able to, be malicious towards the homeless. Considering that this man is supposed to be pro-America and every homeless person is an American, I think it is definitely pause for concern to be able to have somebody like that in leadership because one, it shows that he lacks the humanity to be able to deal with probably one of the most critical and detrimental issues within our society. One of the main reasons is because every person that was homeless used to be a tax-paying American. Every person that's homeless used to have a functional life. Every person that's homeless was born and raised in the United States, educated by the United States, and supposed to have opportunities within the United States. So to be able to just carte blanche write people off and say, let's just throw them in camps, although sometimes when I get frustrated, I think the same thing. That's why I'm not in power, and that's why I'm not going to be president, is because, for somebody like me, even though I get frustrated, it's not something that's appropriate. And if you're going to be in leadership, it's not something that you should, that's definitely a character flaw. Now let's look at what Kamala Harris is doing, because Kamala Harris is no better. Okay, I was warned this time last year by one of my subscribers that is, I consider her a dear friend. She warned me that they're going to get tired they're going to throw a lot of money at the homeless issue. They're going to get tired of it, and then they're going to put you all in camps, and it's going to turn into just like what the Nazis did with the Jews, the blacks, and the homeless. And I think that if Kamala Harris gets into power or retains power, she won't be the one in charge. It'll be ran just like the Biden presidency. She's just a figurehead, a puppet. It's these unelected bureaucrats, and these unelected bureaucrats in their craziness, we'll just say, their delusional bubble in which they're in, like, ew, there's a homeless person, he's dirty, he stinks, oh, I just don't want to ever see him, because they don't want to feel guilty that there's to be able to see, that in order for them to have what they have, there has to be, the bottom echelon. There is a hierarchy to everything, even including in nature, and Jordan Peterson tells us that quite frequently. But when it comes to Kamala Harris, it's not going to be very much different compared to one or the other. So honestly, if we were to pick a candidate, like if you have not voted and you really wanted to vote based on the homeless issue, I think that RFK Jr. is probably going to be your best choice, because he not only was he a civil rights attorney, and although I do not like his social justice warrior for a VP pick, that's what cost him everything that he had, is because the social justice warrior, like anybody that liked him, as soon as they realized who he picked, they got away from him. But he is humane. He has more a more thoughtful approach to be able to dealing with issues here in the States and dealing with domestic issues. If I could have any one of the three become president, I think that RFK Jr. would probably be my ideal candidate if I were looking at it just for the homeless issue, just because of content of character, and just who he is and his track record, what he's done, and kind of how he views the world. So I think that all the candidates, none of them are going to help the homeless. One is just going to figure out a different way to put us in a coffin than the other, but they're both going to put us in a coffin. And here's the worst part: if Kamala Harris does get into or retain office, you are guaranteed to see one of the worst economic collapses our worst nightmare could come to play. And so that means you've got 90 million Americans that are homeless, 90 million Americans that are being sent to these internment camps, so that the remaining 70% doesn't have to see the attrition from them being able to retain their lifestyle. Okay, versus like Donald Trump. I mean, at least he's a businessman and he can do good for the economy. So instead of having 30% homeless, we could have 15 or 20%, which, that means a few more people will live. So, I mean, at the end of the day, if we're really talking about the homeless issue, it's a lot more complex, because it's not just about how you're going to deal with the current homeless, but how are you going to create opportunities that kind of curtails the negative effects, the ugly side of capitalism. And that's all I have to say on this subject. If you guys